I'm here to introduce Glenda Dubienski. Glenda has been doing an amazing work in our country, Rwanda. May God bless you, Glenda, for all you're doing to our country. Glenda Dubienski is passionate about people, empowering people, and seeing people accomplish their dream. She has been married to the love of her life, Ralph, for almost 35 years, and they are the proud parent of 3 extraordinary children who share her passion for building up people. Glenda holds a master's degree in counseling, but has closed her Calgary practice to be more intentional about serving in Africa. In 2009, she made her first trek to Rwanda as she co-led a team of therapists who taught trauma therapy techniques to pastors, imams, social workers, and lay counselors. It was then that she fell in love with Rwandan people and felt called to join them in their fight against genocide and the rebuilding of their people and ultimately their nation. By 2011, she established an international NGO in Rwanda under the umbrella of the East Africa Focused Not-for-Profit she co-founded, Hope Ethiopia. Glenda split her time investment between Canada, Ethiopia, and Rwanda, with the primary focus on effort in Rwanda, feeling called to help empower youth and young adults who, through the horrific genocidal history, have lost everything, including parent, advocate, and opportunity. Glenda works alongside grassroots NGOs in Rwanda who are doing amazing work with very limited resources. She helps them dream big and support them to see those dreams come to fruition. Sensing a call to be a bridge between the developed and developing world, Glenda extends invitation to those who feel led to participate in international development work. She leads mission teams of all walks of life, medical professionals, stay-at-home mom, teachers, counselors, engineers, high school and university students. And she's thrilled to see the transformation in their lives as they share in her life's work and embrace a vision for becoming a responsible global citizen. Please welcome Glenda Dubienski.
Thank you, Jeanette. For your information, Jeanette was the first Rwandan to befriend me, and I met her here, and then I met her brother, Jean Berkmas, who was my translator. There he is at the back, yeah, when I went to Rwanda for the very first time with a team of counselors. And I really don't think you know how much you've impacted my life. Thank you for your friendship. I was asked today to share some stories of some Rwandan women who have risen out of the ashes. Women that I serve, admire, and really love. Women who have overcome tremendous adversity and are making an extraordinary impact in their nation. I'm blessed to know many beautiful and courageous women. And so the debate was, which stories do I share? Well, I could share the stories of friends who are members of parliament, and as Christine mentioned, 64% of the seats are held by women in Rwanda. And I could tell the stories of such women who have invested all their experience, their education, strength, and energy to fight for freedom and justice and facilitate healing of their country. I think there's a slide. Oh, I have the clicker, don't I? Son of a gun. I have power. There we go. That's the current parliament in Rwanda. But instead, I want to share with you stories of some of the less visible, almost invisible, and generally unsung heroines of Rwanda's recovery and revitalization. When I think of these women, I'm reminded of something that genocide survivor and author of Left to Tell, Immaculée, said, "I believe that we can heal Rwanda and our world by healing one heart at a time. I was reminded because the accounts I share are stories of women who believe just that, in healing one heart at a time. Interestingly, these stories are the stories of women who by the world's standards have nothing to offer because they're poor, lacking finances, education, and people of influence in their lives, and yet they offered themselves freely and fully to the restoration of those entrusted to them. Let's see if I can get this, sorry. But before I share their stories, I need to explain how sacred I believe them to be. Clement, what you shared today, that was sacred. Thank you for sharing that with us. Believe it or not, a lot of genocide stories have been stolen and used for profit. And these stories I'm going to tell you are not stolen, they're entrusted. If you've ever sat with someone who's chosen you to be the one with whom they're going to share their deepest, darkest part of their souls, you understand what I mean by the sense of sacred. Our international NGO has established and partnered with trades training facilities for marginalized women and has facilitated holistic care of these women, which includes trauma counseling, medical care, sponsorship for their children to go to school, and so on. But before a woman is admitted into our trades school, our compassionate team builds relationship with them. And through interviews and visiting her in her home where she stays, meeting her children, exploring her community, and praying with her and blessing her. After accepting an invitation to join our new class, she's granted an opportunity to record her story in her own book. A book that's created by her and for her. A book that will honor her story for what it really is. A story with mountaintop highs and bottomless lows. A story that has shaped her to be the extraordinary woman of character that she is today. The resilient, strong, tenacious, beautiful woman that she is. And as they produce their books, my team and I do not look through them. We facilitate the beautifying process of their creations, helping with paper punches and cutting decorative papers and ribbons and whatever pretty things we can find. Contributing photos of our time together and recording encouraging words that our team has given each of them, but we are not really, truly privy to the contents. At the end of the process, they take their treasured album home and tuck them away in a very safe place. And the very simple act of creating these books helps them to realize that despite all the systems that were established to squash them, to erase their very existence, their stories are important and highly valued. And what is even more important, the ladies come to realize in such a short period of time that they are important and highly valued. In subsequent visits, they freely bring out their books and show them off, often revealing other photos and trinkets that they've added since our communal day of journaling. I always tell them they don't need to share them. They're their books. But they insist because they've come to trust. This is massive. A genocide survivor learning to trust. Nothing sort of miraculous. In the 4 years I've been working with the women, several have insisted that I share their stories with the world because they say the truth must be told. I'm always humbled by their trust, which they have willingly extended to you. So allow me to share radically condensed versions of their stories that author and journalist Philip Gorovich, who said at an event that you yourself hosted in Nebraska, says they're stories of individual courage and spirit strengthened by faith. I've not cut the faith piece out because that is very much a part of their stories. And it's very much a part of every genocide survivor's story. So to set the stage of these stories, let me provide you with a context. Imagine this. You're one of these women in 1994. Actually, you were a little girl in 1994, living in a patriarchal society that's being divided by outsiders, by colonialists who somehow felt justified to define tribes where tribes never existed before. And because of the label attached to you according to your father's so-called tribe, you are targeted for the hatred expressed towards your people. For 35 plus years, for more than 2 generations, your tribe has been told, you're not human. You're insects. You're cockroaches. In the classroom, you're singled out. Bullying does not adequately describe your experience. You're verbally and physically abused by your teachers and students of the other people group because you're deemed not worthy of the human rights afforded the others. Even when you rise to the top of your class, your promotion, your privilege of promotion, is actually given to someone from the other group. Outside the classroom, you're persecuted, beaten, sent to the back of the waterline, denied proper medical attention. You may even be chased from your family land to live in the most dangerous of places, overrun with wild animals, plagued with sleeping sickness and malaria. The violent abuse completely envelops your existence. As a child, you've come to know the world is not just an unsafe place, but it's a place that's out to get you, to diminish you, to put you down, to squash you. The world is out to destroy you. Then the genocide of 1994 hits. You and your people are the target, particularly the men and boys, because according to the government of the time, fathers dictate your tribal origin. Therefore, eliminating the men's means getting rid of the whole tribe. More girls survive the violence than boys, and you are one of those survivors. Whether you were one of the lucky girls who found refuge in a neighboring nation, or you were amongst the most unfortunate who watched as their parents and siblings were brutally butchered. You were left orphaned and most likely homeless. So then what? Just roll over and die? Not these girls, and not any of the girls sitting in this audience today. Something within them said there were other lives that depended upon them. Something within them said they were entrusted with and responsible for others. Something within them said, step up and take charge. So despite their own trauma, they did. They stepped up and they took charge. This is Mama Jose. She's a new acquaintance. I've only visited her twice. But she is an extraordinary woman. I met her because she's taken in one of our students who was orphaned and homeless, Christine. To enter into Mama Jose's house, our team had to weave our way through a swarm of tiny children. Oops, I guess I kind of went overboard there. It appeared that her home was a gathering place for all the under 7 crowd of the Umudugudu. Crowded into her tiny dirt-floored home, sitting on borrowed benches, we learned that Mama Jose was the sole caregiver of all of them. She had 9 primary school-age children living in her home. 9 pre-primary school-age children, okay? Only 2 of these children were blood relatives. They were grandchildren who had been abandoned by her daughter. And the other 7 were children she literally picked up off the street. Support came from the day labor jobs that Mama Jose picked up. And she amazed me. And I knew she had something to teach us. And I knew that we had to come back to visit her. For the Rwandese in the crowd and those who've traveled to Rwanda, you know that when you visit someone in their home, curiosity gets the better of the neighbors, and they all have to come too. Well, sure enough, when we went to visit Mama Jose for the purpose of asking if I could share her story with you today. We were accompanied by the women next door. When I asked if she would mind sharing her story with you, she blushed, she looked at the floor, and started to tear up. She expressed humble surprise at my rationale for wanting to share her story. She's never thought of herself as a hero. But her neighbors quickly chimed in to affirm my observation and share her impact in the community. They agreed that God protected her life through the genocide and strategically placed her right in their little community to care for the little orphans. And there'd be many more before the 9 wee ones had arrived. Interestingly, Mama Jose has never found any resolution to the trauma she suffered during the genocide, and yet, despite her own unresolved pain associated with being a widowed rape victim, and despite living in poverty, she does not hesitate to tenderly, mercifully, and lovingly care for abandoned children. I knew I'd cry at her story. Our encounters with Mama Jose have been profoundly impacting, to the point that when we left her home, I told my project manager, I think we were in the presence of a saint. She gives until it hurts and then gives some more because she feels called to love the least of these. Okay. This is Monica. Orphaned by the genocide when she was 17 years old, Monica was left to fend for herself and her 3 surviving siblings. Chased from their parents' home by squatting genocidaires and horrific memories, Monica took her sisters to the big city in hopes of finding extended family to help, but none was to be found. With no more than a primary school education and with 4 hungry mouths to feed, she turned to prostitution. Resolute to provide as best as she could for her sisters, she earned enough, believe it or not, to house them and feed them and clothe them and even send them to school. If you can imagine that time of chaos, confusion, and enormous loss, there were a lot of people, a lot of women who had no means of supporting themselves and turned to prostitution to feed their children. In such a competitive market, it was Monica's feistiness and determination that garnered her success. And as a naive teenager, she had no idea the cost of her decision. Her means of providing for the family took its toll. By the time her sisters were grown up, Monica was diagnosed HIV positive. She was angry. So angry that she decided she would avenge herself by trying to infect every man she possibly could. But shortly after she made this decision, she met a Kenyan missionary who regularly and patiently shared with her the love of God. His incredible and unexpected kindness helped her find faith in something much bigger than herself, release her bitterness, abandon her plans for revenge, and take on a new mission. Since then, Monica has dedicated her life to caring for other people like herself, women who were left destitute because of the context of their lives, who sold their bodies to feed their families, who were consumed by bitterness over the HIV diagnosis. Every Saturday evening now, Monica meets with about 40 ex-prostitutes at a cemetery just down the road from where they used to work. They pray together, support each other, and the healthy choices they're now making. Actually, I tease her that she actually has her own church that meets at the cemetery. Monica, she actually works with me full-time now. She's our recruitment officer and our liaison with the women. She knows the women in the slums. She finds those in greatest need and keeps in regular contact to support and encourage and to pray with them. She is our eyes and ears on the ground in the inner city slums. On top of this responsibility, Monica looks after her 2 children and the 3 children of the sister whom we lost to a TB lesion on the brain just 3 years ago. Her other 2 sisters are married with children. As a matter of fact, just 3 weeks ago, I visited her youngest sister in the hospital, who had just had a baby. And as I looked at that little baby in the incubator, I thought, wow, it's a different world for you. Oh, thanks. You think I come prepared, hey? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. I must tell you that when I asked Our Ladies if I could share their story at today's event, they were surprised to hear who would be present. Genocide survivors of diaspora, Canadians of all walks, refugees from other nations, and Canadian government officials. I wish I could have captured the look on their faces when I told them. But their facial expressions said it all. Wow, those people would be interested in my story? Again, the message to them is they're valued and important. You know, these stories aren't grand. These aren't grand stories. But they're stories of women who really, truly, with courage and spirit, strengthened by faith, overcame tremendous adversity to invest in others. And whether they realize it or not, they're empowering the next generation of Rwandans. And in turn, they're empowering the nation by bringing hope through their sacrificial love. These women are healing one heart at a time. And in 21 years, they've touched a lot of one hearts. I want to thank you for being here today and for granting me this opportunity to share these triumphant stories with you. And for the message your participation actually sends to Our Ladies, the truth of their great value. You see, by your presence and engagement in their stories, you helped contradict the lies that they grew up with and counter the message of genocidal thought. For you've validated their humanity and their contribution to all humankind just by your presence. So like the many one hearts these women have touched, I hope their stories have touched your one heart. Thank you.